Bid bond, performance bond, payment bond. I want to start out by saying that to win in court you have to know what goes on in court. What goes on in the courtrooms go back to Edward I. It's called statute merchant, and what it is a bond of merchant or bond of record. The statutes themselves are the bond, and what they do is duplicate the statutes that they charge you under with what they call a recognizance bond, and people sign the recognizance bond without reading what the bond says. I brought this to Joe's attention when he signed his bond, and what it says is that you agree to pay back the debt. When you go into court on a criminal charge, it's civil, not criminal. There's a book out, one called The Jurisdiction and Practice of the Law of Admiralty by Johnny Hall. It's based on Clerk's Praxis. The Clerk's Praxis was a clerk of the Court of Registrar of the Courts Arches under the King's Bench. The Court of Arches is a court of probate, and Johnny Hall is the one that wrote this book. This book was never intended for public viewing. We're going to try to reprint this book so that everyone can have a copy of it to read. If you want to understand how Admiralty works, this is the book you need to read, and the reason being, read the case of Waring v. Clark. It talks about clerks' praxis in there, and they used it in the Vice Admiralty courts in the colonies during the American Revolution. This book caused the American Revolution. What they're doing is all about bonds. When you go into the courtroom after you're arrested, they use two different sets of bonds. What they do when you're arrested, they fill out a bid bond. The United States District Court uses 273, 274, and 275. SF means Standard Form. Standard Form 273, Standard Form 274, and Standard Form 275. This is the United States District Court. There is another set of bonds, and they are all put out by GSA, General Services Administration. I'm just talking off the top of my head because I have all of this stuff memorized. GSA Form SF-24 is the bid bond. Everyone should have a copy of the bid bond. The performance bond is SF-25. The payment bond is SF-25A and put out by the General Services Administration, which is abbreviated GSA. The GSA is under the Controller of the Currency, which is under the GAO, the General Accounting Office. Okay, you have two sets of bonds, SF-24, SF-25, and SF-25A. At the federal level you have SF-273, SF-274, and SF-275. Okay, what are they doing with these bonds? What's going on in the courtroom is that they are suing you for a debt collection. What it is an action of assumpsit. The word presume comes from the word assumpsit, which means I agree or I presume to do an act of assumpsit, which means I agree to a collection of a debt. If you look at these bonds, every one of these bonds, the bid bond, performance bond, and payment bond, all have a penal sum attached to it. The reason for the penal sum is if you don't pay the debt, you go into default judgment. That is what is going on in the courtroom. That is why all of these guys are sitting in prison wondering what's going on. If you go in there and argue jurisdiction, Jack Smith is exactly correct in what he is saying about the honor and dishonor. If you go in and argue jurisdiction or refuse to answer questions that the judge or the court addresses to you, they will find you in contempt of court and they will put you in jail. And if you read Clerk's Praxis, that's all they talk about is contempt. What they used to do back in Edward I, if you owed a debt, they would send a sheriff out with a warrant to arrest you. This is all civil. This is not criminal. It's just a smokescreen to cover up what they are doing with mercantile civil law and what they used to do when they arrest people with a warrant and brought the person into court and made them sign a bond to release until the civil suit commenced. It actually says civil suit in Clerk's Praxis. There's some transcripts made of some of my thoughts, and I'm going to write it on the board so that everybody knows how to spell. This is how you spell Clerk's Praxis. Latin for practice. If you look up praxis, it means practice. This is the only book I have ever seen, and I have seen about every Admiralty book in existence that's an actual praxis book, and it goes into everything that Jack teaches. It talks about 2 letters of rogatory. It talks about the collection of the debt. What they do is arrest you, then they hold you. Basically, they hold you until the suit has been completed, and when they get default judgment on you because of failure to pay the debt, they put you in prison. Anyone who has been in jail or prison that knows me knows that I'm not wrong. Attorneys are there to cover up the smoke screen. What attorneys do, because no one knows what's going on, they lead you into dishonor or default judgment, and then the court puts you into prison. Then they sell your default judgment. Who do they sell it to? Believe it or not, the U.S. District Court buys all of these state court judgments. Get on a search engine and type in U.S. courts. I spent a whole 8 hours getting in there. After you get to the U.S. courts, go to the 11th Circuit Court of the United States, Circuit 1 through Circuit 11. Click on Circuit 7. That will take you into the various courts, bankruptcy, district, etc. Click on to the Northern Illinois District Court. That will take you to the clerk's office. There's a box there. Then scroll down and you'll see administrative offices, where you'll see financial department. It will talk about the Criminal Justice Act and optional bids, and this is all spelled out, and they're not trying to hide it. I don't know why no one has found this out before. Go down to list of sureties. Now, why do you suppose they have a list of sureties in a federal district court? When you get into the list of sureties, it will have fms.trees.gov. This is the Department of Treasury. Okay, when you get into the Department of Treasury, you see on the left-hand side of the screen you'll see admitted reinsurer, and underneath that will be a list of sureties. Then under that the word forms. From there you'll see about 300 reinsurance companies. They're all insurance companies. I downloaded the whole thing. I have a complete list. I also have a list of surety companies. There are 2 sets of companies, the list of surety and reinsurance companies. Under 750 of the Department of Treasury. They have to be certified so they can buy up these bonds. These are the people that are buying these bonds when you win into default judgment, and they can't buy these bonds unless they are certified by the Secretary of the Treasury. Next, click onto the word forms, and it will take you to the Miller Act reinsurance, and will list 3 different kinds of bonds. They don't use a bid bond in the district court. That's why I gave you Form 24. All of these forms come out of the GSA, the General Services Administration. Form 24, 25, 25A and 273, 274 and 275. The 273, 274 and 275 bond forms. The 273 is the reinsurance with the United States. The 274 is the Miller Act Reinsurance Performance Bond. The 275 is your payment bond, your Miller Act Reinsurance Payment Bond. What are they doing with these bonds? They have regulations governing these bonds. There's 2,000 regulations governing these bonds. We're going to make these available. It's $50 for the discs. The disc has 2,000 regulations on CD for people who want this. If you go into these regulations, what they are telling you is they're buying up commercial items. They use the word commercial items, and in 2.01 of these regulations are divided up into 50 parts. There's 1126 pages in Volume 1 and 823 pages in Volume 2, and they're all on the disc. And what they tell in there is 2.01 defines commercial items as non-personal property. What is non-personal property? Any property that is not real estate. It means immovable. Real estate is not movable. Go into your Uniform Commercial Code and look up the word movable and immovables. If you go into and I'll read it to you so you won't think I'm making this stuff up. Commercial items or commercial paper. I recommend everybody. This is the 8th edition of Black's Law Dictionary. I doubt if anyone in the room has got one. This thing is really good. Basically what it says is commercial paper, negotiable instruments, anything you put your signature on is a negotiable instrument under the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the Lex Mercantorium. It's mercantile civil law, and the reason they use Lex Mercantorium in the courtroom is because every one of you are merchants at law, and merchants at law is anyone whom hold themselves out to be an expert because you use commercial paper. Because you use commercial paper on a day-to-day schedule, you are considered to be an expert, and this is why they are not telling you what is going on in the courtroom, because you are presumed to know this because you hold yourself out to be an expert because you use commercial paper all the time. Every time you put your signature on a piece of paper, you are creating a negotiable instrument. Some are non-negotiable, and some are negotiable. Every time you endorse something, you're acting as an accommodation party or an accommodation maker under 3 to 419. An accommodation party is anyone who loans their signature to another party. Read UCC 3 to 419. It tells you what an accommodation maker is and what an accommodation party is. When you loan your signature to them, they can rewrite your signature on any document they want, and that's what they are doing. This is what is going on and what the federal courts are doing. They are buying up these state court default judgments, and these are called criminal cases but are actually civil cases, and call them criminal to cover up what they are doing. If you read Clerk's Praxis, you find that what they call criminal is all civil. They just call it criminal to cover up what they're doing. If you don't pay the debt, you go to prison. Bottom line, I know, I've been there. I told them I wanted the CUSIP Committee on Uniform Identification Process. CUSIP is in the DTC building on 55 Water Street. DTC is the Depository Trust Corporation. It's also called the GFCC, the DTCC, Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, the MSCC, Mutual Securities Clearing Corporation, NSCC, National Security Clearing Corporation, GSCC, Government Securities Clearing Corporation. $1 trillion a day goes through the DTC. CUSIP is a trademark of Standard & Poor's, which is located on the bottom floor of the DTC of 55 Water Street. CUSIP has what is called CINS equals CUSIP International Numbering System. For domestic, they have a 6-digit numbering system, and when they go international, which is where CINS comes in, and ISID equals International Securities Identification Division, it's called ISID PLUS, and they have a global networking system that includes Paine-Webber, which has 10,000 corporations in it. They are the major stockholder in CCA, which is Correction Corporations of America, and they are in Nashville, Tennessee. Everyone should have this list, and what they have done is privatize the system. Everything, even real estate. Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, all of HUD. All of your. This is international. Everybody is feeding off of the prison system. All of the major corporations are feeding off of the prison system. How many of you have heard of REIT equals Real Estate Investment Trust, or PZN, which means prison trust? What about all the real estate? They own all the real estate because they hold the bonds on them. You haven't redeemed your bond, so they didn't close your account. Lehman Brothers banking cartel just gave $6 million to New York, which had a deficit. You need to read this treatise. It's 15 pages and lays it all out. They don't call it prison facilities, they call them credit facilities. What does that tell you? Lehman Brothers are underwriting the prison system. Here's what goes on. A contractor comes in, or any corporation could come in, and what they do is tender a bid bond to the U.S. District Court, and they buy up these court judgments. And anytime you issue a bid bond, there has to be a reinsurer. They even have a reinsurance treaty. International treaties. If you read the Constitution, treaties are the supreme law of the land, so they get a reinsurance company to come in and act as surety for the bid bond. Then they bring in a performance bond. All of these bonds, bid, payment and performance, are surety bonds, and anytime you issue a bid bond it has to have a surety. Where is the surety going? It's guaranteeing or reinsuring the bid bond by issuing a performance bond. That's what these performance bonds are. Then they get an underwriter, and that would be either an investment broker or an investment banker. They come in and underwrite the performance bond, which is reinsuring the bid bond. What does the underwriter do with a payment bond? The underwriter takes the three bonds in, pools them, and known as mortgage-backed securities, and when you pool these MBS they're called bonds. And they're sold to a company called TBA, which is the Bond Market Association. This is an actual corporation. What they do is, after the payment bond is issued, to reinsure or underwrite the performance bond, which reinsures the bid bond, they convert these bonds to investment securities. The banks do, and brokerage houses, and they sell these as investment securities, and you are funding the whole enchilada because you got into default judgment when you went into court. Before you can do anything, you have to know what's going on in their regulations, which are at 48 CFR Code of Federal Regulations. This is where I'm getting all of this information from. If you're interested in getting the disc, it's $50 for the disc, and there's over 2,000 pages of regulations on there. Part 12 deals with commercial items, and commercial items are negotiable instruments, and they're selling these court judgments as negotiable instruments as commercial items through these bonds: the bid bond, the performance bond, and the payment bond. What is a reinsure? Anytime you're dealing in bonds or risk management, and what the reinsurer is doing is insuring part of the risk of the bid bond. What they do is give him a portion of the original premium. This is all insurance. The original insurer gives him a part of the premium of the policy of the bid bond in exchange for being a reinsurer or indemnity, or act as surety for the bid bond. Then the underwriter comes in and guarantees a resale of the bonds back to the public as investment securities. In order to win in court, you have to redeem the bond. I went in and asked them for the bond, and everyone disappeared. Nobody showed up. I went down there and asked them for the bid bond. I said I want the bid bond back. I asked for full settlement and closure of the account. I don't think people are doing it right in court. Indiscernible comment: everything you described is pure bottomry. Yeah, hypothecation. I have a friend that works in Securities and Exchange and knows how to hypothecate these bonds. It's your money that they create. Same thing going on in the banks, and with these bonds, they monetize these bonds. They take your bond because you got into default judgment 5 because you didn't pay the debt, and took your bond and made an investment security out of it. They're making a fortune off you. This guy calls me up and said, I read your treatise and said you're 100% correct. And I says, who's this? And he says, well, I've got my own commodities and securities company. He buys these bonds. They go international, and when they go international they go as CINS, and from CINS they go to ANA, equals Annual Numerical Number Association, and located in Brussels, Belgium, and they have unlimited capital. How many of you have heard of Eurostream? This is where your pound, yen, and sterling, everything came under the prison system. Everything is being funneled through it. They're all feeding off of it. That's what was behind 9/11, so they could get the state legislature to pass more statutes, bond statutes, so they could arrest people for writing a threatening letter, so they could arrest you for terrorist activity. Paper terrorist, they call it. ALEC is the think tank behind it, equals America Legislative Exchange Committee. Paul Warwick owns the Cognis Foundation, and what ALEC does is promoting privatization of prison systems, and what they do is go to the National Congress of Commissioners, which are made up of 72 judges and lawyers, and 72 judges and lawyers are the ones that drew up the Uniform Commercial Code, which everything is operating under. Everything is under Lex Mercantoria. If you go into the state statutes, and I don't care what code you go into, will Say the principle of law and equity or law merchant is the decision in all the courts. Everything is commercial. 72117 CFR says that all crimes are commercial. If you read that, it says kidnapping, robbery, extortion, murder, etc. are commercial crimes, and if you don't do full settlement and closure of the account, they will put you in prison. What they do is they sell the bond both domestically and at the international level. They convert these bonds to investment securities and sell them at the international level. CCA is the ticker on the stock exchange. They actually sell stock and shares on the New York Stock Exchange. CWX, CWD and CWG. When it goes to Frankfurt, CWG. When it goes to Berlin, CWD. I'm telling ya, people think I'm making this stuff up. They're not going to tell the public. That is their ticker symbol. They're listed right on the New York Stock Exchange. You go buy USA Today or any global paper that lists the stocks on there, and they're on the New York Stock Exchange. Question. Answer. CCA Correction Corporation of America, and they go international, which means Berlin and Frankfurt, Germany, and they use a different sticker symbol. Who owns CCA? Don Russell. He owns 64 million shares of it. John Ferguson. He's the vice president and owns about 35 million shares. They are on the board of directors. There's another corporation called Dillon Corrections owned by David Dillon, and what they did was they merged with Trinity Vendor Investments and Dillon, and they became SD Warburg, and they're located in Chicago, Illinois, and they're hooked up with the ICE Bank, which is the Bank of International Settlements, located in Switzerland, one of the largest banks in the world. All this stuff is in that treatise. There's a lot of information in that. You need to sit down and read that so you can understand what's going on before you do anything. This is why people don't win in court if you don't redeem the bond. All this trial and presenting is a dog and pony show. Question. Indiscernible. Answer. Don't use a bond, use a bid bond. If you look at that bid bond, it has the principal up there. Form 24, it's got the word principal up there. You're the principal. Who is the surety? Straw man is the surety, so you put the straw man down as the surety and you put yourself 6 down as the principal. Then you fill out a performance bond. The performance bond is the reinsurance for the bid bond. Put yourself down and the guarantor or reinsure. The performance bond is 274. You have 3 different bonds: bid bond, performance bond, and payment bond. The payment bond is the underwriter of the performance bond. You can do all 3 bonds. You can underwrite the performance bond and underwrite the bid with the performance bond. That's the reinsurer. They're doing it for you because nobody knows this stuff. You're the one that created all of this mess. Question. Answer. If you have a case pending, what you should do is go to whatever district you're in. I think Ohio is. Go find the Northern District Court and type in your case number, and it will tell you about your bond. Who's got your bond? I'm going after my bond. Question. Are you the reinsurer on the payment bond also? Answer. Well, you're acting as the underwriter to tell you what's going on with the banks. The banks are all tied in with this. Every time you sign a check is a promissory note. The banks made a derivative on it. The banks do not have any money at all. A check is a promissory note, and what they do is endorse it on the back after you present it for payment and endorse it on the back without recourse, and then they sell it as a derivative. They monetize it. They monetize debt under the Monetary Control Act of 1980. They monetize it and sell it internationally. If you have a check for $100, you'll have 20 or 30 international corporations using your check. Question. Is that why they never give you back the checks anymore? Answer. You got it? The question was for the audience. Why don't you get your canceled checks back anymore after you present for payment? The reason you don't get them is that they sell them as a promissory note. All personal checks are promissory notes, and the banks make derivatives out of them and sell them internationally. You're actually loaning money to the bank. You talk about screwed up. Now you know why they have proctologists. You're loaning the money to the bank and the bank loans it to other people with derivatives into the billions. Question: how much are they making? Answer: trillion of dollars. When it goes internationally, you're getting into 9 and 12-digit figures. 9 digits is a billion, etc. Let's take a 10-minute break. End of part 1, blank, underscore, blank, part 2. Question: I have a court case coming up. If it's already in default, is that necessarily fatal? Answer: you can cure the default. I use the default judgment in same terms of dishonor. Jack is absolutely correct. When you go into dishonor, it looks like what they're doing is suing you civilly, a civil suit for a collection of a debt, and if you go into default judgment, if you have a claim, and I'm taking a mandatory Rule 13. Rule 13 says that when a claim arises from the same transaction or occurrence, it's mandatory that you file a counterclaim. What is your counterclaim? Post-settlement and closure of the account under public policy. You're entitled to a discharge of the debt because number 1, you're the principal and you're the holder in due course of the original account. You own 7 both sides of the account. You own a common stock, the preferred stock, and you're the principal on the account, which means you're the creditor. Everyone is acting like a debtor instead of a creditor. What does the creditor do? He pays his debts. You have to file the proper paperwork before you can do this. You have to be the secured party. You have to file a UCC1 comment. You have to do stuff before that. You are the principal upon which all money circulates. This is called the accrual method of accounting. Accruals are the capital and interest from the principal. Anytime you monetize debt, you have a principal. You have to identify yourself as the principal, and what they have to do is return all capital and interest back to you as the principal. This is called the accrual method of accounting. When you get into a courtroom and start arguing jurisdiction, what you're saying is, I'm not going to pay the debt. First of all, let me say that the straw man, the all capital letter name, the one they have a claim against because your dear old mother signed a contract with the state creating the straw man, and he did this through the birth certificate, and what they do is give him your name and use your name in all capital letters because you are the fiduciary trustee of the account. And what does the fiduciary trustee do with the account? He pays all of his debts to honor the court. Now what these people are doing in the redemption process is going into court and arguing, and they're getting into default judgment. If you argue jurisdiction or refuse to give the court your name, what you can do is a conditional acceptance. There's one person here. She has no charging papers. If they don't charge you, then they don't obviously have a claim against you. They don't have a claim against the straw man as they don't have the charging instruments, but you don't want to start arguing with the court about it. With the conditional acceptance, you can say that, I'm more than happy to give you my name if you can show that charging papers have been put into the court record. I have not seen any papers that show any charges exist. That's a negative averment. What you are doing is rebutting the presumption that they have charges against you. They work by presumption. They don't have to have anything. They work off presumption, assumpts it that you owed until you rebut the presumption. Tell them I'll be more than happy to give you my name. They are drafting you for performance. Anytime the court asks you to do something, and Jack will verify this, they are drafting you for performance, and if you don't perform, you get into dishonor by non-acceptance. They're making a formal presentment under 3 to 501 of the Uniform Commercial Code so they can charge you. And they use the word charge. They use the same commercial words on your indictment, information, and complaint. They use the word charge. The following charges. He has 2 counts of charges, RICO, or they charged me with the same identical thing that they charged Roger with. Roger has been to prison for 9. He hasn't even been to trial yet. What he's been doing in there is listening to people that tell him to argue. Is this an Article 3 court under the common law? As soon as he said that, Richard Marcus, who was the judge, said, you obviously don't understand what venue and jurisdiction this court is operating under. They had a business credit report right there in front of him. He said, "I'm going to do a psychiatric evaluation on you to see if you're competent to stand trial." When you start arguing, when you put yourself out as an expert on commercial paper and here you go arguing instead of paying and honor the court, then you're in dishonor. He's wondering why they're drugging him, and they're drugging him because he's constantly arguing with these people. You got to be a gentleman, Gentile man. You can't go in there and start getting belligerent with these people. What did the scriptures say? Be as gentle as a dove and wise as a serpent. You can't act like an insurgent or belligerent. If you do, they're going to treat you like one. They'll beat you up. I've been in confrontations with these people, and you don't want to get into a confrontation with these people. What you want to do is settle the account. Go to full settlement and closure. You're running the account. You're the fiduciary trustee over the account. Tell them what to do. You're the principal and owner of the account. Tell them what to do. Tell them you want full settlement and closure of the account. You have to do this from the get-go. Here's the wording you use. I accept your charge. S for value in consideration. You have to use the words value in consideration. This is what I did. There's different forms that need to be used, and that's value in consideration. I accept your charge for value in consideration in return for post-settlement and closure of account. Put down your 9-digit social security number and put down CUSIP and AUTOTRIS. No. AUTOTRIS means Automated Tracking Identification System. Question: is your social security number the same as your AUTOTRIS number? Answer: yes, it is. Don't put the dashes in there, just the 9-digit, that's the CUSIP. No. When I said that, they didn't even want to talk to me. When you say CUSIP and AUTOTRIS, they know exactly what you're talking about. I had a judge say that you could get out of this thing, but you will never figure it out. The Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Processes. Did everybody get this? Okay, CUSIP is spelled C-U-S-I-P. They're all listed in the handbook called the Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Processes. That's what CUSIP is. CUSIP uses your social security number to identify you because the birth certificate is a security. It is an investment security, and they have all the original birth certificates which are registered at the state level with the Department of Human Resources, and then they go to the Department of Commerce and the federal level, and then to the DTC, the Depository Trust Corporation at 55 Water Street, which has all the birth certificates registered. CUSIP is a trademark of Standard & Poor's. Who is Standard & Poor's? Standard & Poor's is located underneath in the DTC building, underneath 55 Water Street, New York City. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Is everybody getting this stuff? Question: do you use the 9-digit no for the number for the account CUSIP and AUTOTRIS? Answer: yes, they use it for ICID too. What you do is put down acceptance for value in consideration and return for full settlement and closure of the account number. Then put your account CUSIP hash and AUTOTRIS hash and put your social security number after that, and then put down your case number. The more you find it, comment clarification on the acceptance. I accept your charges for value in consideration in return and post settlement and closure. Put case number and AUTOTRIS and CUSIP account hash, and then put your social security hashtag AFTERIT. Then date it and endorse it. That comes after the AUTOTRIS, and post settlement you say, please use my exemption for full settlement and closure of this account, as this account is prepaid and exempt from levy. 9. Under Rule 8 of the FRCP, I accept the charges for value in consideration in return. Please use my exemption as principal for post-settlement and closure of case number and CUSIP and AUTOTRIS account numbers SS hash As this account is prepaid and exempt from levy and you would date it and endorse it. Date down here and endorse down here. This is how to prepay and exempt from levy, then date it and endorse it. You have to endorse it as the authorized representative. You're going to assume liability yourself. Any questions about this? What they do is they put your AUTOTRIS number, which is the Automated Tracking Identification system. They put it in a manual that's in a module. And every federal agency and every state agency has your tracking number. They have it in the criminal task force that uses it, and so do all of the courts and all of the police departments, the city, county sheriff, FEMA, Homeland Security. They all use this. This was made in a forensic laboratory in Russia. AUTOTRIS was and is owned by a Dan S. Hard to make out if M. then would be Archer Daniel Midland. Does everyone have it down? Question regarding the signature. Indiscernible. My opinion on that is that you're the fiduciary trustee and you're assuming the responsibility for the straw man as the authorized representative. You're the authorized representative for the straw man. My question is, if you use by and underneath the name put auth rep, what that is stating is some other person other than the straw man signed that paper. Gene: yes, so that doesn't make you liable. The other way of doing it is using the real Christian appellation there, and you are the authorized representative under 3 to 402. 1. It says if you sign in the capacity of the authorized representative, you're not incurring any liability on the signature. That is 3 to 402 of the UCC. That's why you want to use the strawman name and use the word by as the authorized representative. Gene: by signing in the name of the representative person or the name of signer. It says, if a person is acting or purporting to act, signs on instrument by signing the name of the representative person or the name of the signer. The representative is bound by the signature to the same extent the representative person is bound by the simple contract. 1. If the form of the signature shows unambiguously that the signature is made on behalf of the represented person who is identified in the instrument, the representative is not liable on the instrument. 2. Subject to subsection C, if the form of the signature does not show unambiguously that the signature is made in a representative capacity or the represented person is not identified in the instrument, the representative is liable on the instrument holder in due course that took the instrument without notice that the representative was not intended to be liable on the instrument. With respect to any other person, the representative is liable on the instrument unless the representative proves that the original parties did not intend the representative to be liable on the instrument. Judges and lawyers don't understand commercial law. They do not teach commercial law at law school. They have a special school for them, and it's on a need-to-know basis. No one uses this stuff. The problem is no one knows this stuff. That's why I'm up here teaching this stuff. When you use commercial paper, what does it mean? It means that you understand what you're doing. The law always assumes that you know. You 10 were doing this since you were born until you reach the age of accountability, which is 18 years of age, or what they call adulthood. You're considered an adult at 18 in some states. Some states it's 21. You're responsible for your actions. The problem with this country is that no one wants any responsibility. If you're holding yourself out and using commercial paper on a daily basis, that legal definition makes you an expert, or you wouldn't be using it, so they presume that when you go into the courtroom you know all this stuff. Does everybody know this stuff? Hell no, they don't. Even judges don't know. Here's what you're dealing with. I'm glad you brought that up. The question is, if you don't show up in court with an attorney, this is why they drill you about competency, mental capacity. This is why Roger Elvick is in a mental institution and drugging him in a stupor. He doesn't even know what he's doing because you go in there and start arguing with these people. When you're in a commercial setting, you don't want to argue with these people. What you want to do, the reason why you have to have an attorney, and I can't emphasize this too strongly. The reason why you have to have an attorney in a courtroom is because they're working on the public side and they can't talk to you except through an attorney because they are working on the public side and you're working on the private side, and what's going on in the public side is everyone is insolvent and bankrupt on the public side. You're dealing in and I'm going to read this to you. It's out of Black's Law Dictionary and you'll see why you can't go in there and argue jurisdiction. This is called a fiction of law. This comes out of Black's Law, and what they are referring you to when you look up fiction of law is legal fiction. Why do they call it legal fiction? Okay, here's the definition of what legal fiction is. Remember, this is a fiction of law. This is the reason why you can't go in there and argue. You're in a commercial courtroom, a commercial setting. Now there's certain aspects of admiralty where you can do that, but when you're in a commercial setting, you cannot do that. It says legal fiction, the subject or something that may be true even though it may be untrue, made especially into judicial reasoning to alter how a legal rule operates, specifically a device by which a legal rule or institution is divergent from its original purpose to accomplish indirectly some other objects. The constructive trust is an example of a legal fiction, also termed a fiction of law. Fictio juris is how they pronounce it, and they will not allow you to defeat this fiction of law. Why? Because this is what the rules of decisions that came out of the Erie v. Tompkins decision, and all of the courts at every level are using it. They're using fictions of law. Why? Because in admiralty maritime law everything is colorable. It has the appearance of being real but is not real. Or as Howard Freeman put it, appears to be genuine, but it's not. It looks like it's real but it's not. I was involved in a case with George Heinemann, and the federal district judge said you can get off this whole thing but you'll never figure it out, so I filed a habeas corpus and they threw the habeas corpus out, and in his opinion, his decision in the HB, he said I failed to give color to my pleadings. I failed to state a colorable claim. And if you study admiralty maritime law, that's all they talk about is colorable claims. How do you get color to a pleading? Confession and avoidance. I did a lot of research in this area. What is confession and avoidance? It's a common law remedy. Yes, you confess what it is. You confess that the plaintiff has a cause of action, but to avoid the consequences of the action is by an affirmative defense. Confession and 11 avoidance has been changed to Rule 8 Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. What is an affirmative defense? The law merchant, the law of principle and equity, the law of discharge, the law of satisfaction, bankruptcy. Are affirmative defenses? Are they bankrupt? Sure they are. What you're trying to do is rebut the presumption, but you don't want to do that. What you want to do is go in there and settle the account as the principal. Whenever they monetize debt, they always have a principal from which they borrow all this money from. Since the United States declared, John Traficant, who is a congressman here, said, "We are going through the biggest bankruptcy and reorganization in United States history." James Traficant, very brave man, but he doesn't understand. He could have got out of this. We can get him out. Okay, when you go into these courts, all these judges know that there is no money. What do I mean by money? There's no gold, or it depends on what jurisprudence you're operating under. Under the common law, only gold and or silver are money. Go read Title 12 Sections 211 to 212. It says, "The lawful money in the United States shall be construed to be gold and silver coin. All Federal Reserve notes are redeemable at any Treasury Department office or any Federal Reserve Bank for lawful money. It is against public policy. That's what House Joint Resolution 192 says, is hereby declared to be." Title 31 Section 5118 2d. Does everyone understand confession and avoidance? Confession means you agree or accept. That's your commercial acceptance. IACCPT. The charge for value and consideration in return and for full settlement for case and account number. Please use my exemption. If that is the correct ruling in these courts today, it would be good to preclude that statement with pursuant to Rule 8 FRCP I accept for value. Now you're giving the judge the rule under which you're doing the acceptance and now can't wiggle out and accept your acceptance. Rule 8 is for affirmative defense. Common law rule of confession and avoidance. Under affirmative defenses, they have to give you an out. Whenever you create a liability, you always have to create a remedy. Every liability has a remedy attached to it, and affirmative defenses under Rule 8 is your remedy from every commercial liability. What do I mean when I say these are prepaid accounts? What they do when the industrial society borrows money to manufacture product, like when GMC manufactures automobiles, they borrow all money to manufacture these automobiles. They're on the public side of the accounting ledger. What do I mean by public side? Everything over here is private and everything over here is public. This is where the principal is, and this is where the debtors are. Your straw man is over on the public side, he's on the AUTOTRIS side, and when you're over on his side, you're in the public, you're in bankruptcy. You're the principal and the owner. You're the stockholder. You're the bank. This is not my opinion. This is what's going on. I'll take you in any bank. I own my own bank. Private banker, black law. 6. I draw up my own charges. Yeah, you're the lien holder. Holder in due course, stock owner. Owner in the principal. You own the preferred stock and the common stock. This is where the principal is. The straw man is the beneficiary. They cannot run. You're the bridge between the private and the public side, as are notaries. What is your exemption is that's why they give you your exemption. This is the debits and this is the credits. Anyone understand intermediate accounting? Credits are liabilities and debits are assets. And if you look at these accounting books, and I've seen them, and everything 12 is built up on the account ledger, and they can't pass it from the credit side to the debit side because they are constantly in dishonor. Debits are private and credits are public. Most people are floundering around on the public side of the accounting ledger. They're borrowing all of this money using your credit, but you're responsible for the straw man. Who do they charge when you come into the courtroom? Whose name is on the complaint? Straw man. They're charging him, isn't they? Is he liable? Sure he is. So he has to pay, doesn't he? So if he doesn't pay, what happens? You pay for him as you assume the responsibility of the fiduciary trustee, so they put you in prison and sell your account. All they have to do is create a presumption. Remember, it's all colorable, and what does colorable mean? It's not real. So, do they have to have a real complaint? No. Do they have to have a real warrant? No. What did I just read to you about fiction of law? And they will not allow you to overcome this. What they do is, if you go in there and start arguing with these people about jurisdiction, or I don't owe this, or that's not my name, or I'm not going to give you my name, you're going to be found in contempt, and they're going to drive you into the ground. They will jump on you and beat you into submission, and you do not want this to happen. I've been there. I've done all this. You think I haven't been there, involved with the cops? You do not want to do it. You will get beat up, and they will kill you and collect the insurance money. You have an account, and your account is demand deposit account, and you're insured by the FDIA and the FDIC. The Federal Depository Insurance Act, which insures the FDIC, which is the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation under Title 12. They have a $10 million policy on you, and you're worth more dead than you are alive. And if you want to find out how correct I am, just get into a confrontation with these people. They will kill you without reservation and won't bat an eyelash over it. They just shot a young lady down there in Boston, Massachusetts, who was outside with fans celebrating the victory of the Red Sox over the Yankees, and they shot her in the face with a pellet rifle and killed her. She wasn't even doing anything. The more people that kill you have to understand what's going on. I'm not BSing you one bit. Roger was telling me about the cemetery in West Virginia. They canceled the contract on the straw man and charged this guy with first-degree murder because he killed the straw man. If you don't think this serious shit, you're going to be for a rude awakening. I can show you judges, lawyers that hired this guy in Texas to hire these Mexicans, then put a contract on them and hire this guy to go in there to shoot them. Then they collected the insurance money on them. This is serious business. Any questions about this? You are the creditor. What does a creditor do? A creditor pays his debts. You're the only one that's got any money. The banks don't have any money. Everyone on the public side is bankrupt. That's why they had to create the straw man, so that they would have a remedy, and they're doing everything right and we're doing everything wrong. Everyone that goes into court does it all wrong. They go in there and argue with the judge. I don't spell my name in all capital letters. Question about going into court with a lawyer. Yes, they will appoint you one. Especially if it's a felony. They'll appoint counsel for you. What you do is letter of rogatory. It's called a letter of rogatory. What's that mean? A letter of advice. What do you put 13 into this letter of rogatory? You instruct the attorney that you are doing an acceptance for honor and you want an accounting of the total amount of the bill of the full settlement and closure of the account. Then you give your CUSIP and a UTOTIS number in your case number. You want to know what the total amount of the bill is post-settlement and closure of this account. What you want to do, they can't talk to you for the simple reason you don't understand commercial law and the attorney is on the public side. You need a mouthpiece, a microphone. That's what attorneys are, a mouthpiece. If you don't give him the proper instructions on what to do, they're not going to do anything. Give them a letter rogatory. This is a letter of advice. This is out of Clerk's Praxis, page 80. What you say in the letter is, put your name in here and put, I appoint, put your attorney's name here and you write, I appoint attorney Joe Blow as my fiduciary trustee, case number and a UTOTRIS and CUSIP SS no. And use my exemption as principal for full settlement and closure of this case and account and date it and endorse it. You're actually creating all the money for the bank. They're using your money and going out and making depravities and fractionalizing, making trillions of dollars off you. And everyone asks me if this stuff works. We need a reality check. I issued an international bill of exchange to my APO adult parole officer and they stopped billing me. What I want is my bond. The bid bond, performance bond and payment bond. Question: yes, I'm the principal. I want my capital and interest back. What they did is quit billing me. The reason why you have to use an international bill of exchange is that December 8, 1988, the United States became a party to UNICITROL. This acronym is not correct convention. Has everyone got this? Let me know if I'm going too fast. So they quit billing when you were in prison when you tender IBOE. Yes, they were sending me bills every week and they arrested me because I drew it up on a computer and held me for 3 days and let me go. Question: indiscernible. You got that right. Question: indiscernible. Simple. They pull a gun out and shoot you. They insert the shell into the revolver and shoot you because they have insurance on the straw man, and since you got into dishonor and became an insurgent and belligerent. If go in. See, I taught this in the other classes. This is why this is really a 1-week seminar, because there are two sides of an amica. Not sure if this is right report. There's the supply side and the admiralty side, and if you read, there's a 700-page treatise on the internet that goes into all of these war powers of the executive branch. And anytime you're under the War Powers Act and with the trading with the enemy, you're subject to capture and seizure wherever they find you. Comment: what they do is sink your ship and collect on it. A yacht, they torpedo your vessel, then they collect on it, and if you don't allow them to do full settlement and closure, they will kill you in about an hour. If you think These people care about you. You're in for a rude awakening. I care about you, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here teaching. Question about attorney. He's acting as your trustee, and if he doesn't fire him, tell the judge, this man, I've appointed this man as fiduciary trustee. Indiscernible people come in my courtroom. Indiscernible. If you do it right and do what I tell you to, you will not be found in contempt of court. I got myself out of prison. I got charged with 3 counts of RICO. Intimidation, felony 3. Retaliation, felony 2. 1 more count. Couldn't make out. The only reason I spent any time in prison is because I couldn't get my paperwork. A friend of mine, Howard 14 Griswold, has all of my paperwork and he wouldn't send me my paperwork, and I had to make a deal. I served 5 months and they let me out. But I didn't go in there and argue with them. I asked them for full settlement and closure of this account. They dropped the first 2 counts. I didn't go in there like Ron Lutz did and tell the judge, you're sitting on the bench and you don't know the law. Comment. There's a lot of people I know in Michigan that are being arrested in court because they're shooting their mouth out. They have a partial understanding of what's going on, but they're being belligerent and calling the judge asshole. I did that when I first started. I called the judge asshole. Laughter. He said, you can't talk to me like that. More laughter. Indiscernible. Yeah, I didn't know all of this then. Comment. Indiscernible. What they do is arrest you. What you have to do is go after the bond. The bond is the key to this. The bond I'm talking about is the bid bond. There's 2 sets of bonds. There's GSA 25, General Services Administration. It's called SF, means standard form. Comment. These are GSA form numbers. These are federal forms. There are 2 sets of federal forms. The GSA SF 24, that's your bid bond. GSA SF 25 is your performance bond, and the GSA SF 25A is the payment bond. Question. Something about the UNCITROL Treaty. The United States became a party to the UNCITROL Convention in December 8, 1988, and it supersedes Article 3 of the UCC. If you go into the master text, the official text, it says that. That's where I got it from. We're going to get into that. These international bills of exchange note. Some of these acronyms may not be right. End of part 2, blank, underscore, blank, part 3. This is the bid bond. This is the performance bond, and this is the payment bond. This is the reinsurance here. The performance bond is the reinsurance. The payment bond is the underwriter. Do you know how they do it in Admiralty? They write your name under the name of someone else, and that's called the underwriter. It's all done with a signature. Comment. Bonds and ships on the sea. All bonds are insurance. It's all Admiralty. Comment about seals. Well, they usually have seals. All insurance companies have seals. Make a seal on it. Make your own seal on it. If you're the principal, do you have to have somebody tell you what to do? If you're the creditor, then start acting like one. How does the creditor act? Does he go after the debt or the money? They come after you, don't they? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Question. Yes, they guarantee the payment of the bid bond. The payment bond is the underwriter. They get an investment broker and an investment banker to underwrite these bonds. The performance bond guarantees the bid bond. Either the insurance company or the broker underwrites the performance bond. If you go into the websites I gave you, U.S. District Courts, you'll see a whole list of admitted reinsurers and listed sureties. They're all listed in there. If I printed out all the stuff I have, we'd have a stack of papers like this. Question. If you go to court and have all these bonds in place, will that settle the account? Yes, fill them out and get someone to give them to you. 15. This is the problem with getting arrested, because you don't want to get belligerent with these people. If you get arrested, then you can't do anything. Question. If you know of someone already in prison, how do you get them out? Let me answer Joe's question. He asked a question. United Nations Convention on International Trade Law, spelled UNICITRAL. Unit Convention on International Bill of Exchange. UNITRAL Convention on Trade Law. Your trade law is your International Bill of Exchange and International Promissory Notes. You can use International Promissory Notes as well as International Bills of Exchange. I did an International Promissory Note with Walmart and they accepted it. All these people being arrested, I'll tell you what, they're doing it wrong. They're not going to full settlement and closure before they get to court. If you let these accounts stay open, the court will come after you, criminally, civilly. Why are they coming after you? They're not coming after you for what you did. They're coming after you because you didn't do full settlement and closure of the account. You're not going to go to prison for writing checks. Roger is not in prison because of the checks he wrote. They can charge him with anything. Ron Lutz got 17 years. And he's not in prison for what he did. He bought some cars and they cashed those checks. Those checks were good. He wrote an $80,000 side draft and it was good. They cashed it. Credit. While he's sitting in prison for 17 years. Question. Why is that? What have I been saying? They charged him. Go read UCC 3-501 if you want to know what a charge is. In order to make someone liable on a commercial instrument, you have to make a presentment. Have you ever read a mortgage note? You waive dishonor, you waive presentment, and you waive protest. It's a confessed judgment. That's why they go to collection. They seize the property and take you into court. You waive everything. You waive presentment, dishonor, and protest. Did I answer your question, Joe, regarding UNICITRAL? Yes. December 8, 1988, the United States became a party to this convention on International Bills of Exchange and International Promissory Notes. I have 4 different copies on UNICITRAL. This one here has the document numbers on it. Benedict on Admiralty 7th edition. There's 90 articles in it and tells you the International Convention on Trade Law. It's the United Nations Convention on Trade Law. What they are doing is making everything uniform because everyone is operating on international law. They are not operating under Article 3. They are operating under the UNICITRAL Convention because the United Nations and the Pentagon are running everything. They're owned by the Jesuits, who own the Vatican, who are owned by the Catholic Church and the Pentagon and the United Nations. They're operating under international law, and that's why you have to use international bills of exchange, because it supersedes Article 3. And what does that mean? You can't use drafts or anything because it's been superseded. Everything is international. When I did one of these, they arrested me and kept me for 3 days and then let me go. They must have called the controller of the currency. I gave one of these to them. All these people going to jail. And I gave them one. Where you get into trouble with these instruments is when you cut a draw on the public side of the accounting ledger. There is no Treasury direct account. Where is the account? It's your exemption. Where is the exemption? It's on the bill of exchange. You're the drawer on the drawee. If you go into the UNICITRAL convention and read Articles 1-7, it tells you how to put one of these together. This is put together correctly. I've 16 used it and it works. Q. The document number. Where did that come from? That came from Benedict on Admiralty. That's the only one that has the document number on it. If you want proof of the international bills of exchange, if you go to Article 6 subsection 3 and Article 7(4)(c), it talks about as good as AVIL. What does as good as AVIL mean? When you sign your signature, you put as good as AVIL underneath it. This came from Australia and Canada. The Canadians use this, and when the United States became a party to the UNICITRAL convention, they adopted this into the convention on the international bills of exchange, and these things work. I gave one to the ATA. These are the people that are arresting all of these people for using these instruments, and they accepted it. Q. What does that mean, AVIL? It's a surety ship contract. That means you're guaranteeing the payment. How can you guarantee the payment because you are the principal on the private side? You're the reinsurer. You're not only the reinsurer, you're the underwriter. Write your name underneath theirs. Get them to get you a contract, then write their name and give them a bid bond, payment bond, and a performance bond. Yeah, you should put the date on there. You're the principal, and that's why they put the principal on these bonds. You're the principal and the reinsurer on the surety. You're also the underwriter on the payment bond that guarantees the performance bond, that guarantees the bid bond. Is there anybody that doesn't understand that? Cute. When you write the bill of exchange, do you write that bid bond with it? Yes. You use the International Bill of Exchange with the three bonds: the bid bond, the performance bond, and the payment bond. The International Bill of Exchange is the guarantee of the bonds. That's the guarantee. That's the surety contract, and they have to accept it. It's international law. They're operating under the law. They're doing all of this stuff behind your backs. They're doing it in the banks. What you think the banks are running on? They don't have any money. Everyone is bankrupt. There isn't a bank on this planet that hasn't got any money. They're stealing your exemption, number one, because you're not using in the exemption as intellectual property under international law. All commercial property or items come under intellectual property under international law. They're stealing your identity. The people on this planet are like a bunch of moonstruck house. Everyone is so disoriented they need a Geiger counter to find their doo-doo. Cute. So all we do when we get a traffic ticket or something is write your acceptance statement, draw up the three bonds and Bowen, send it in, and that's it. That's it. What you do when you get arrested, and you do the acceptance and return for value in consideration for full settlement and closure of the account. The CUSIP and AUTORIS numbers using your exemption and prepaid account and exempt from levy. Put that on the front of the complaint for the amount of the bond. They always have to set a bond. That's the market value of the bond. So what you're doing is coming in as a contractor and bidding on the default judgment. You attach the bid bond. You're the reinsurer and the underwriter, which means you're the reinsurer on the performance bond and the underwriter on the payment bond. All the payment bond is an underwriter on an underwritten bond, and usually what an investment banker or investment broker is. Now let me ask you this. How can they underwrite a payment bond when they don't have any money? You got to get real, man. These banks are all bankrupt, illiquid, insolvent. You're creating all the money the banks are using. They'll give you free checking, a free dog. Haha. A Mexican bull. Cute. Do you have to 17 have a UCC 1 filed? Yeah, I would do it. Cute. File one against the trust. Well, they say you have to redeem your straw man and file with the Secretary of the Treasury to redeem your straw man. I don't think that is necessary. What I did is file a 12-page security agreement because I made the security agreement the collateral, and all the collateral is listed in the security agreement, and I attached it to the UCC1 financing statement and filed the whole thing. It's about 19 pages. Cute. Where did you get the security agreement? A. I had a law firm draw mine up. B. Biggest law firm in the United States. All they do is security agreements. They did mine, and if you want help, I'll do one for you for a very small nominal fee. All the collateral is listed on this security agreement. It's got an indemnification bond in it in case of default, and what you're doing is indemnifying all of the default of the strawman. It's just like a surety bond. You have all of this power and you're giving it all up. What do you think these people are doing? This is what they're doing. We should be doing what they're doing. They don't have any money. You're creating all of the money. So where does that leave us? That means that we don't need banks, do us? Cute. Are we the country that knows this? Nope. I'll tell you who knows this. Douglas Whaley. You need to get his book. He's a professor of the University of Ohio and he teaches commercial law to banks, and I'm going to get his books. There's 3 volumes and they're in print. I've got all 3 down at the other house, or I had. Some discussion on the security agreement. The reason I filed my security agreement is to get down my collateral. I didn't put it on my UCC1. I put it in the body of the security agreement. So I registered it. The security agreement and the UCC1. More discussion on the UCC1 and security agreement. The corporations always deal with the fictions because they're bankrupt. You have to be a lien holder to claim. This is the way Admiralty works. If you're not the lien holder, then you can't bring a claim in Admiralty. The security agreement is an agreement between the straw man and you. The UCC1 is a registered lien that is authorized by the security agreement. The human controls the lien on the straw man by filing the lien on the UCC1. Prior to that, you better have paperwork that documents the difference between the straw man and the human, because if you don't have that, you can't breach the assumption of the straw man in court. There's a process that's already been established that does the separation between the human and the straw man. The security agreement follows and the UCC1 follows that. If you don't have that before you know this process, prioritizes each one of those filings and they can go backwards and nail your butt to the liability on the straw man. Some more discussion on the filings. Don't make assumptions, they're not going to change anything. Questions on attorneys. You make him talk to the court, and if he doesn't want to do it, then fire him. Get someone that will tell the judge that he's not following your instructions. You've given him instructions for full settlement. Get it on the record. Then you can go a notarial protest and a notice of protest, which is your default judgment if they refuse to close the account. And all these forms are in Pembino. I recommend you get Pembino Notarial Handbook. Pembino's somewhere in all of this paperwork. I've got a notary handbook. I recommend you get one, and here it is. Here is the number. This has got all of the forms in it. Let me tell you that you can only do a notarial protest on an international bill of exchange. What does that tell you? QA. You can do your own if you're a notary. This is called the National Edition. I'm going to give you the phone number. It's an 800 number and you can call it and order it. 18. It's $24.95 plus shipping. This has got all the forms to do a protest. You do a notice of protest and a certificate of protest. You ask for the National Edition. It's got a maritime protest and a marine protest and a certificate of protest and a notice of protest. Notice of protest is notice of dishonor. You have to give them notice. Ask for the National Edition. Start doing things right and we'll start getting our remedy. This is somebody that knows what they're talking about. I bet you have 100,000 people running around teaching redemption and none of them know this stuff that I'm teaching here today. Not one person in redemption knows this stuff. QA Notary Handbook. It's in the Cleveland Library. I have it at home. I've got all the forms here for doing a notary protest. All the forms are in this book, the notice of protest and the certificate of protest, and have already filed it with the Secretary of State, and they sent it back and said it was not authorized to be filed, and I'm going to resend it back. Even in the statutes it authorizes them to file it. If you're going to do this stuff, you've got to learn it. Everybody is running around getting everyone else to do their paperwork for them. All they end up doing is getting in trouble. It seems to me this protest get lost in this whole procedure. I'm not sure how it fits in. Okay, when you go to full settlement and closure of the account, they're in commercial dishonor. If you do notice of protest and a certificate of protest, this is in Title 10 U.S.C. Section 4801. It's called the Uniform Foreign Judgments Act. They're foreign to you. Do they collect on you? How many people are in prison right now? The old axiom, if you're in Rome, do what the Romans do. If you're operating under Lex Mercantoria, you got to learn Lex Mercantoria or commercial law. QA. Yes, under the Uniform Judgments Act. What do you think they're doing? Where do you think I'm getting all of this information from? I'm getting it from them. This is their stuff, not mine. I didn't make this stuff up. This is what they're doing. The federal district court buy up the state court judgments with a bid bond from some contractor. Then some insurance company comes in there with a performance bond and underwrites the performance bond. Then they go to the federal district court and enforce the judgment. The district court is buying all of these state court judgments and they're selling them on the Commodities and Securities Exchange. When you get an underwriter in there, the underwriter converts the payment bond into an investment security. They pool these mortgage-backed securities, and when they pool them, they become a bond. It's all bonds. If you go to 26 CFR, I think it's 1 to 101. We're talking about bonds. You're the principal on all these bonds. Everyone is using your bond except you. The banks are buying mortgages, all the real estate, and you're sitting here like a big dummy wondering what's going on. You're giving them all the money to do this, creating it. The banks can't create anything because they are on the public, which is bankrupt. That's why they open up all these accounts, these alleged freebies. We'll give you a big 12-inch popsicle if you come down and open up an account. We'll give you an aerobic cube doll to play with, or a piñata. You know what a piñata is? These little dummy that hangs from the strings. You give up all your power. I tried to teach this stuff in 1980 and nobody would listen. Now people are starting to listen. When the problem is always greater than the solution, people always go to the solution. If you're paying back the loan, what happens to that interest? How does that interest fit in? Well, the interest is represented by accruals on the principal. That's what they make the derivatives on. Everything that is circulating as money is capital and interest. Really 19 what it is, principal in circulation. They don't call it principal because it's capital and interest in circulation. Federal Reserve notes, demand deposit account, checkbook money, international bills of exchange, any kind of commercial paper are called capital and interest. Letters of standby credit. How do you think a bank issues a letter of standby credit? What a bank does, take their collateral, which is all these checks from the checking account, which are nothing but promissory notes used as collateral and are used as the standby letters of credit. If you ever looked at my astrological chart, I'm doing this under my chart. I'm dealing with international bankers. Here I am. Ha ha ha. You guys have a lot of power, you just got to use it. Do you want to set up a step-by-step instruction for someone in jail? First thing I would do, I need help. I'm trying to teach this stuff. I'll tell you everything I know. I'm not trying to hide anything. The number one thing you want to do is find out who has your bond. What bond am I talking about? The bid bond. Does it make any difference on what charges you have? No. It doesn't matter if you were wagging your own $%. Everyone is focused on what you did. It has nothing to do with what you did. When you get to the statute merchant, the statute itself is the bond. What does that bond represent? The public and national debt. That's why they made this. Why do you think they made a straw man a person of title if they're not bankrupt? They had to have a fiction, as they only deal with fictions. And everyone wants to go in there and say, that's not me, or I spell my name. I've done all that. So to get your bid bond, you go into the U.S. court who buys all these bid bonds up. Find out what circuit court you're in and click on it. All these instructions are in that 15-page treatise. You need to sit down and read the treatise. This is why we're going to have a follow-up class on this stuff, because you're going to have questions on this stuff. Find out who the holder of your bid bond is on the website of the dist court you're in by looking up your case hash. Remember, they're not the holder in due course, only the holder. You're the holder in due course. Make sure the guy in prison has a UCC-1 filed. They're doing the same thing with the mortgages. Everyone is dipping into the prison system. Everybody. There are 10,000 corporations in PaineWebber. I gave you the website. Go into the website and go to PaineWebber, and there's 10,000 corporations listed in there. I've got a file this thick on fidelity management research. That is supposed to be the assets of the prison system. Comment: actually, the first step is to get the person who is in jail to file a UCC1. Right, the first thing you should do is file a UCC1 with a security agreement. Q. Shouldn't we separate our straw man via declaration of identity? The way my UCC1 is set up, it identifies the straw man. Number 3 is you find out who got your bid bond, and all the instructions are in my treatise on page 15. Read the treatise. Educate yourself. I'm doing this for your benefit. I'm up here teaching this stuff for everybody's benefit. We can stop what these people are doing. This is very powerful stuff. Q. What about a priority lien? A. I think they know who you are, even though you're sovereign. Because you're operating in a commercial setting, you have to follow commercial procedures. I don't think it has anything to do with status. People are getting in trouble in courtroom not because they're not sovereign, but because they were getting into commercial dishonor. A default judgment applies to a sovereign. It doesn't matter what your status is. If you 20 go into a courtroom and start testifying and go in there and telling them you are the debtor and get into dishonor and start arguing with these people, it's the procedure that you follow in the courtroom that identifies what your status is. QA. That's true. You have to make a special appearance and not a general appearance. A general appearance is when you go in there and recognize that this case is in court. What you want to do is get full settlement and closure, so get your UCC1 first. If you want to do that status thing, my security agreement does that. Because you're in commercial law, you want to establish yourself as the creditor. The first thing you should do when you go into a courtroom is go in a tertius intervenor, a third-party intervenor. Intervenor means intervention. You're coming in as a third-party intervenor under Rule 24. What appears to be a dispute over title. The title holder is the lien holder. The UCC1 financing statement is a statutory lien. So what you want to do is establish yourself as the lien holder by the secured party. You're appearing as the third-party intervenor. Intervenus is Latin for intervenor. Tertius means third party. Who are the other two parties? The plaintiff and the defendant. Some discussion on papers in court and how to act. If you act like a creditor, you'll be treated like a creditor. If you act like debtor, you'll be pounded right into the ground. Every time you open your mouth, you're testifying. You have to find out who's holding your bond. Go to the district court in your area and look up your case number where you were convicted, and you find out who bought your bid bond, who's holding the bond, and go after it. The bid bond, the performance bond, it will all be revealed. It will tell you who the reinsurer is, who the underwriter is in, who the contractor is who bought the bid bond. Q. How do I go after it? Do I write a letter? A. Write a letter rogatory to them and tell them that you've done an acceptance and return for value and consideration in return, and you're asking for full settlement and closure of this account, and cause of passion you want the bond returned back to you. Q. Who do you send this to? Whoever is holding your bond. You send it to the court too. I've already sent it to the court. They've closed the case and I want my bond back. I sent it to the clerk of the court, prosecutor, and the judge. Q. Can you have the fiduciary find your bond? Sure. This is after you've been convicted, dishonored, and been to the Crossbar Hotel and beat up and gang-banged, whatever, and you're out now and you want to get rid of all this. They still got your account open. Q. So this is what you're talking about. The certificate of protest and notice of protest. A. You have to lay a foundation for default judgment just like they did to you. That's what they did to you. They got default judgment on you and then they went to closure. The commitment order is the default judgment. They're committing you to a Department of Corrections is to correct the debt as stated by Roger Alva, or credit facility, because they got you into a dishonor. These are called credit facilities. These are not prisons. Q. Can you issue a bond with a habeas corpus? Yes. A HB is a civil suit. If they don't give you the bond, what I'm going to do is find out who is holding the bond and send them a letter of rogatory, and if they don't give me the bond back, then what I'm going to do is a habeas corpus in federal district court to order them to forfeit the bond on the grounds that they are in commercial dishonor. I've got evidence of the dishonor. I've got judgment on them already. The certificate of protest and the notice of protest is your judgment. But you can only do this on an international bill of exchange. I've already done the IBO 21. The only thing you haven't done is close my account. They have not given me the proceeds or my bond, the fixtures, products, and proceeds. Discussion about habeas. Not sure if spelled right. Habeas corpus surety. Yes, what you can do is sue the bond with in revocatia in admiralty under Rule 9.8. Go after the bond. Name the bond in the suit. What do you think they're doing to you? They're suing the bond. They're not suing you, they're suing the straw man. Q. What happens once you get the bond? This is the only part that I don't know. I've got someone that does know what to do. I know how to monetize these bonds or hypothecated. What you do is get them hypothecated. Q. How do you get someone out of jail? You do full settlement and closure and release the bond. Orders of the court in the bond. Q. Release the bond. Does that include the person that is in jail? Yes. Once you redeem the bond, then they have to release the person. The reason they're holding the person is because the bond has not been redeemed. Some discussion can't make out, and he's doing it on the public side. What I'm advocating is you do it on the private side. You bond yourself. You're trying to do it on the public side, and you can't redeem on the public side. You have to do it on the private side. Q. Basically what you're saying is that you redeem the bond. The reason they're holding the person in prison is because of the default judgment. You got to redeem the bond. There's an outstanding bond and they're holding you as collateral against the bond. Human chattel. You are goods in a warehouse. These prisons are crack facilities for warehousemen. They are bailies and bailers. If you read my treatise, the bailies are the ones that deliver the goods and the bailer is the one that holds the goods, and the bailman is the contractor that delivers the goods, and you are goods under the Uniform Commercial Code. Chattel. Q. Where can you go to get instruction for the documents for habeas corpus? Go to Title 28, Section 2254, Habeas Corpus Proceeding for a state prisoner, and 2255 is for a federal prisoner. You can get the forms from the clerk of the district court. There are all kinds of form books in the law library for doing habeas corpuses. Hard to understand discussion by the group. Some discussion on people in jails in various scenarios. Discussion. Now if you're trying to get someone else out of jail, how many people here have someone that they want to get out of jail? Okay, I suggest we get together and figure out how the hell to do this and make it happen. Do these people have a UCC1 they want to file? I think we need to start from scratch. Do they have an account with the U.S. Treasury? That's where they need to start. Need their social security number and number on the back of the SS card and get their UCC1 filed. You're saying all of those numbers are needed in a UCC1? That's correct. That's not true because I discharged a debt for my son from the IRS. How old is your son? 37. He doesn't have any UCC1 filed. Well, here is what I'm going to recommend, because there's plenty of people in here that have situations like that. If you're interested, I suggest that we create some kind of a work group and figure out this process and start implementing this. We can do it online, or we can get together on the weekend, or whatever you want to do. First of all, there seems to be some discrepancy of information on what needs to be filed on the UCC1. I didn't put my SS hash on it, yeah, but you can amend anytime you want to. 22 Gina, I think the concept of your SS hash birth certificate hash in setting up a Treasury Direct account as the Secretary of the Treasury is the fiduciary trustee of the bankruptcy note. I also heard it was the secretary of the transportation transcriber. He is the one that discharges all your debts, and so you send everything to him. What you do is draw yourself an international bill exchange and make yourself the payee, and you use your exemption. The red number on the back of the SS card, that's your exemption, aka prepaid account. No, the red numbers are on the new cards. They started doing that in the 50s and 60s. This is GAAP, the General Accounting Practices. Also GAAP is Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. They give you two numbers. You have a private number and a public number. The SS hash is for the debtor or straw man, and the red number is for you, the principal. Go get a 1099 OID and I'll prove to you that everything I'm teaching is correct. Original issue discount. They issue you as the principal, and everyone else is listed as the debtor, and what they do is file a 1096 tax return, which is a prepaid interest. All corporations file that form to show prepaid interest to get the deduction. If you read Title 26 Sections 163, it says all prepaid interest is tax deductible. Everybody is doing this thing differently. I've seen guys write checks and they register them as collateral on a UCC1. Some discussion. Well, everybody wants to do something differently. I filed the birth certificate as collateral, listed the social security card. The straw man is a trust fund. I put it down as a trust fund. The Keating Jean Blaine Trust Fund, that's who the debtor is. Yeah, they say the secured party and the debtor cannot be the same person. The Secretary of State wouldn't let me file it, so I changed it to a trust fund and they let me file it. They won't accept the description that the straw man is a different. They're using your name. Your mother gave them permission to do that. We all get too soon old and too late smart. 1099 OID, that's what they file when they buy these bonds. Let's take another break.